The Constructicons were the first ever combiner team in Transformers history, and honestly, they might still be the most unhinged. 6 construction vehicles, each with their own psychological baggage, all smashing together to form one giant robot who's somehow dumber than any of them individually. Today I'm breaking down every single Constructicon, what makes them tick, and why Devastator is basically a therapy session gone horribly wrong. Starting with the team's resident wrecking ball, Bone Crusher. Bone Crusher's official function designation is simply demolitions, which is like listing your job title as problems. He transforms into a bulldozer that can exert 800,000 pounds per square inch of force while moving at 30 miles per hour. That's roughly the pressure you'd need to crush a diamond, except he's doing it on wheels at highway speed. His stat card backs this up with a strength rating of 9, endurance of 8, and courage of 8. The guy's built like a tank that wished it was scarier, but here's the thing. Bone Crusher isn't just some mindless brute who likes smashing things, even though he absolutely does like smashing things. On the surface, he finds real beauty in rubble-strewn landscapes. He looks at a demolished building the way a normal person looks at a sunset. Lovely stuff. Underneath that lies a perfectionism so extreme that he literally cannot tolerate anything he perceives as flawed, and since he views every single Autobot as fundamentally flawed by design, the destruction just feeds itself. He's not angry, he's curating. He's essentially got a philosophy degree he doesn't know he has. And his thesis is everything that isn't rubble is wrong. Megatron keeps him around because the sheer terror his demolition work creates is invaluable. Enemies scatter, resources get recovered from the wreckage, and the Decepticon war machine rolls forward. Except for one small problem. Bone Crusher has a habit of destroying infrastructure the Decepticons themselves actually need. Bone Crusher, we needed that bridge. It was flawed. It was our only supply route. Still flawed. In vehicle mode, he carries a short-range concussion bomb launcher, and in robot mode, he's armed with a laser pistol. Not the flashiest arsenal, but when you can exert 800,000 pounds per square inch with your face, weapons are almost a courtesy. He forms Devastator's left arm, which is honestly poetic. The bot who's always first into the fight gets to be the fist that swings first. First introduced in 1985 as part of Generation 1, Bone Crusher was one of the original 6 Constructicons, and part of the team that invented the entire combiner concept. Every Gestalt team that came after owes its existence to this bulldozer with an existential crisis. But if you think a perfectionist who expresses himself through property damage is strange, wait until you meet the Constructicon who destroys himself emotionally just trying to get his teammates to like him. Scavenger. Scavenger is genuinely one of the saddest characters in the entire Transformers franchise, and I don't think enough people talk about it. His official function is mining and salvage, and he transforms into an excavator loaded with magnetic, ionic, electrical, and gas detection sensors that let him pinpoint fuel deposits and metal concentrations with a level of precision nobody else on the team can touch. On paper, that makes him indispensable. In practice, his teammates barely tolerate him. Here's the thing. Scavenger's endless digging and searching isn't about greed. It's not about hoarding resources or building personal wealth. Every single excavation mission, every deposit he uncovers, every rare metal he drags back to base is a desperate attempt to get his teammates to say good job. That's it. That's the whole motivation. He's out there scanning irradiated wastelands with 4 different types of sensors trying to earn a pat on the back from guys who couldn't care less. And Megatron keeps Scavenger around for one reason only. Those detection sensors are useful. That's the entire relationship. You have tools I need, so you get to keep existing, which is, not ideal, but here's where it gets genuinely tragic. Scavenger has every reason to be valued by his team. His sensor array is unmatched among the Constructicons. He can locate energon deposits, rare metals, and salvageable materials that nobody else would ever find. He's literally the reason the team has resources to work with half the time, and canonically, he still gets no respect for it. Nobody cares. Nobody acknowledges it. He drags back another critical haul, and the team just moves on like Scavenger had picked up a particularly boring rock. Now look at his tech specs, because this is where the irony really lands. Strength of 7, endurance of 8, both perfectly solid numbers, but his courage rating, 9. That's the highest on the entire Constructicon team. The guy who gets treated like the group's emotional punching bag is also, statistically, the bravest one there. He endures constant social rejection, zero recognition for legitimate accomplishments, and a leader who views him as a walking metal detector, and he just keeps showing up every single day, still digging, still hoping. He forms Devastator's right leg, which honestly feels appropriate. He's literally the foundation holding the team up, and nobody even thinks about it. You don't notice the leg until it's gone. That's Scavenger's entire existence reduced to a mechanical metaphor. The guy can't catch a break in any continuity, but if Scavenger's tragedy is being competent and ignored, Wait until you meet the Constructicon who's brilliant and completely unhinged. Mixmaster. Here's what I need you to understand about Mixmaster. His official function designation is Genius Chemist, not engineer, not builder, not demolitions expert, chemist. This is a cement truck whose entire existence revolves around mastering poisons, corrosive substances, and explosives. Somewhere along the way, somebody looked at a concrete mixer and thought, yeah, that's a chemical weapons platform. And honestly, they were right. That cement mixer drum isn't decorative. It's not just spinning around for fun. It serves as both containment and delivery for whatever nightmare compound Mixmaster has cooked up this week. The guy has spent his entire lifespan perfecting the art of making things dissolve, explode, or both simultaneously. He can synthesize deadly concoctions from whatever raw materials happen to be lying around in the environment, which is the Cybertronian equivalent of MacGyver if MacGyver's only goal was making everything within a half-mile radius significantly worse. But here's where it gets genuinely impressive. Mixmaster isn't just a one-trick poison truck. His vehicle form has multiple configurations, including an attack truck mode that mounts dual guns onto the chassis. So you've got a cement mixer that can also just straight up shoot you. He's less of a specialist and more of a Swiss Army knife that happens to be full of acid. And the IDW comics took this even further. In that continuity, Mixmaster wields railgun weaponry and carries what are described as acid potions. Which sounds like something out of a fantasy RPG, but is apparently just his Tuesday loadout. But the real surprise is his defensive capability. He can deploy 4 separate shields derived from his mixer barrel components that integrate into his arms and shoulders, creating this armadillo-like defensive posture that lets him turtle up under heavy fire. A chemist who can curl into a ball and tank incoming damage. Nobody expects that from the guy mixing explosives in the back. This versatility is exactly why the Michael Bay films gave him a co-leadership role alongside Scavenger. When your job is synthesizing battlefield-grade chemical weapons under active combat conditions, you need strategic thinking. You can't just be flinging acid around without a plan. Well, you can, but it tends to end poorly for everyone involved. Including your own team. In vehicle mode, he takes the form of a Mack truck chassis cement mixer with that distinctive chartreuse coloring that makes him immediately recognizable. When the Constructicons combine, Mixmaster forms Devastator's left leg, a transformation that requires his truck cab to pivot upward and connect to Longhaul's waist attachment points. It's a surprisingly complex bit of engineering for a robot whose primary hobby is figuring out new ways to make things melt. The escalation of Mixmaster's concept is genuinely entertaining when you step back and look at it. He starts as a cement truck, a vehicle you see on the highway and think absolutely nothing about, and then you peel back the layers and find a genius chemist with railguns, acid potions, a quad shield defensive system, multiple vehicle configurations, and a leadership position. That's not a construction vehicle. That's a war crime on wheels. But if Mixmaster is the team's mad scientist, the next Constructicon is the one who actually designs everything the team builds, and his creative process has some genuinely disturbing raw materials. Scrapper is the most valuable Constructicon. That's not fan speculation or some tier list opinion. Megatron himself said it. The leader of the Decepticons looked at this team of 6 specialized robots and pointed directly at Scrapper as the one he couldn't afford to lose. And here's the thing, Scrapper doesn't act like it at all. He's quiet, modest, self-effacing. He designs literally everything the Constructicons build, serves as their chief architect and principal engineer, and then lets everyone else take the credit. His intelligence rating sits at a perfect 10 in some continuities, making him arguably the smartest bot on the entire team, and he still defers to others. He's the guy doing all the work while someone else presents the PowerPoint. But before you start feeling sorry for him, hear me out, because Scrapper's humility is hiding something genuinely disturbing. His favorite creative outlet is using living Autobots as raw construction materials, not dead ones, not salvaged parts. Living, functioning Autobots incorporated directly into whatever he's building at the time. And Megatron doesn't just tolerate this, he admires it. He thinks it's efficient, which tells you everything you need to know about both of them, really. Scrapper approaches war with the emotional detachment of someone picking out lumber at a hardware store. And this one's load-bearing? Perfect. Throw him in the Foundation. It's utilitarian sociopathy so extreme it basically loops back around into being an art form. In vehicle mode, Scrapper transforms into a Caterpillar 992D front-end loader. His shovel can slice clean through 12-inch thick carbon steel plate and lift up to 30 tons, which is already impressive for what's essentially a glorified scoop on wheels. But he also has a single jet levitation wing that grants him flight at 60 miles per hour for up to 250 miles. So he can fly. Not well, not fast, but he can do it, which feels like something that should come up more often in conversation. His real value, though, isn't in personal combat. Scrapper thinks bigger than that. He once designed a machine specifically to transfer other Decepticon Decepticons' offensive powers directly into Megatron, or essentially turning the entire Decepticon army into a battery pack for one guy. That's his approach to everything. He doesn't build weapons for himself. He builds force multiplier systems that make everyone around him more dangerous. He's not the sword. He's the guy who figured out how to make the sword 10 times sharper. Now here's where it gets interesting from a lore perspective. Scrapper is the de facto leader of the Constructicons. Megatron says he's the most valuable. He designs everything. He has the highest intelligence rating. And yet when the team combines into Devastator, Scrapper becomes the right leg, not the head, not the torso, the right leg. Every other combiner team in Transformers history puts their leader at the center or the top. Scrapper gets stuck at the bottom, holding everyone else up, which is either a bizarre design oversight or the most on-the-nose metaphor for middle management ever created. Fans have debated this for decades, and the best explanation anyone's come up with is that structural position and actual authority are two completely different things. He doesn't need to be the head. He's already running the show. The quiet genius who builds nightmares out of living robots and never asks for a thank you. That's Scrapper. But if you think his ego is non-existent, wait until you meet the Constructicon who has enough ego for the entire team, and then some long haul. Every team has that one guy who's incredible at his job but absolutely hates doing it. Long haul is that guy. His function designation is Transport R, and he transforms into a Caterpillar 773B dump truck capable of hauling 90 tons of material for up to 1,200 miles on a single run. To put that in perspective, that's like carrying the weight of roughly 60 cars from New York to Florida without stopping for gas. He's also packing dual heat-seeking missiles, which turns what should be a boring logistics vehicle into something that can ruin your afternoon very quickly. But here's the thing about Long Haul. He doesn't want to be doing any of this. Canonically, he longs to be on the battlefield. He wants to fight. He wants to get his hands dirty in actual combat instead of hauling rubble from point A to point B while everyone else gets to have fun. He's basically the Constructicon equivalent of an accountant who dreamed of being a cage fighter. Every day he shows up, does his job, moves 90 tons of whatever needs moving, and quietly resents the fact that Bone Crusher gets to smash things for a living while he's stuck being a glorified wheelbarrow, which is, not ideal for morale. And yet, despite being the guy nobody talks about at the Constructicon dinner table, Long Haul holds the single most important position when the team combines. He forms Devastator's torso, not an arm, not a leg, the torso, the central anchor point that every single other component physically connects to. Without Long Haul locked into position, Bone Crusher's arm has nothing to attach to, Scavenger's arm has nothing to attach to, both legs just fall over, the head floats away. Devastator literally cannot exist without him. The transformation into torso mode is also the most mechanically demanding of any component. Hook's crane chassis has to peg directly into Long Haul's cab area and footplate. His arm attachment points tab into Hook's sides. Then all 4 limb modules have to connect through precisely engineered mechanical systems that treat Long Haul's body as the structural foundation for a giant robot. Every combiner has a torso, and every torso bears the most stress, absorbs the most force, and does the least glamorous work. Sound familiar? That's the beautiful irony of Long Haul. He's the guy who wants to be anywhere else, doing anything else, and yet he's the one holding everything together. The demolition specialists get the glory, the engineers get the respect, the chemist gets to blow things up, Long Haul gets to be a dump truck. But when Devastator rises and starts tearing through Autobot defenses, every single limb is anchored to the guy who just wanted to throw a punch. He occupies this weird functional middle ground between the flashy demolition bots and the strategic masterminds, underappreciated by fans who gravitate toward cooler teammates, yet structurally irreplaceable in the most literal sense possible. Nobody writes fan fiction about the torso, but without it, there's no story to tell. But if Long Haul is the foundation that holds Devastator together, the next Constructicon is the one who makes sure every piece is placed with microscopic precision, and he'll let you know about it. Hook is the coworker everyone has had at least once. The one who's technically better than you at the job, knows it, and will never let you forget it. His official function is surgical engineer, and his precision is genuinely absurd. That crane of his can lift 20 tons and position objects with an error tolerance of less than 0.00001%. His work is literally compared to fine jewelry. The guy could set a 2-ton girder into place with the same care most people use threading a needle. Skill rating of 10, intelligence of 9. On paper, he's the most talented Constructicon alive, and nobody can stand him. His personal motto is strive for perfection, even if others must suffer, which really tells you everything you need to know about working alongside this guy. He's snobbish, condescending, and so obsessively perfectionist that he'll reject completed work, slow down operations, and openly mock teammates whose standards fall below his own, which is everyone's standards, always. Here's where it gets interesting though. Compare him to Scrap Scrapper, the actual team leader. Scrapper has superior strategic vision, designs everything the team builds, and Megatron himself considers Scrapper the most valuable Constructicon, but Scrapper is modest about it. Hook, meanwhile, has superior individual precision and a skull so swollen with ego you could see it from orbit, yet he's not the leader. Does true leadership come from Hook's raw technical brilliance, or from Scrapper's quiet adaptability and willingness to actually cooperate with other living beings? Honestly, the answer probably depends on whether you've ever had a perfectionist boss, but Hook's real significance goes beyond personality. When the Constructicons combine, Hook becomes Devastator's shoulders and head, the literal brain of the operation. He gets the symbolic authority he's always craved, sitting right on top of everyone else exactly where he believes he belongs. And it means absolutely nothing, because here's the beautiful irony of the entire Constructicon experiment. Devastator was supposedly the first combiner ever created, born from Decepticon research into collective intelligence. 6 brilliant minds fused together should produce something smarter than any one of them alone. 6 specialists, each with maximum tier ratings in their fields, merging into one unprecedented entity. Turns out no. When all 6 Constructicons combine, their clashing psychologies don't amplify each other. They cancel each other out. Hook's obsessive perfectionism fights Scrapper's strategic pragmatism. Bone Crusher just wants to smash things. Scavenger's desperately trying to prove himself. Long Haul would rather be somewhere else entirely. Mixmaster is off thinking about chemical formulas. 6 completely incompatible minds crammed into one skull, and the result is a warrior with a strength rating of 10, armed with a solar rifle that fires a 10,000 degree centigrade beam at 6-mile range, who is functionally dumber than any single component standing alone. Devastator's intelligence collapses to the lowest common denominator. Pure destruction. That's the only thing all 6 minds can agree on. Not strategy, not precision, not chemistry or engineering. Just break stuff. That's the consensus. So every individual you just learned about across this entire video, every specialist with their unique brilliance and particular neurosis, they all merge together and produce something that can barely think. The collective intelligence experiment didn't just fail. It produced the opposite of its intended result. 6 geniuses walk into a combination sequence, and 1 idiot walks out. Armed with a death beam, sure, but an idiot nonetheless. And that's the Constructicons. Brilliant apart, stupid together. The greatest argument against group projects ever constructed. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.